Lamplight presents Bourbon Creams and Tattered Dreams by Mary Gibson, narrated by Anne Dover. Prologue. New York, May 1930. She waited for midnight. Her flight must be cloaked in darkness, and it must take him completely by surprise. When the phone call came, she had to move quickly. She snatched up the receiver at the first ring. "Matty, go now!" a woman's voice whispered urgently in her ear. It was Maria, Frank Rossi's sister, signalling that the first part of their plan was underway, and that the New York police were at that very moment raiding Frank's club for illegal booze. Frank would be occupied for the rest of the evening, handing out bribes or answering questions, depending on which sergeant was on duty that night. She hung up and hurried to her bedroom. Too scared to keep a packed bag in the apartment in case Frank discovered it, now she stuffed into a suitcase whatever clothes and belongings came to hand. She'd had so little time to plan. After his trip to Los Angeles, spent trying to drum up backing for her next talkie, Frank had returned to New York, an unhappy man. So, very soon, Matty Gilbie had become an unhappy woman. There was no reason he should blame her for the studio's cold feet, but he did. In the new film, Matty was to play an Amy Johnson-type heroine, a singing aviatrix who flies halfway round the world to find love. Frank had pitched it to the studio bosses with the byline, "The Cockney Canary flies." She would be flying all right, but not in a film. Her flight was as real as her terror of Frank, and if she didn't go tonight, she knew she would never escape him. She quickly checked the cash in her purse. It would have to do. She'd squirreled away as much of her money as she could, but Frank was as intimate with her bank account as he was with her, and he'd been emptying it at an alarming rate, trying to get the new film made. Maria was a good woman. She'd come up with the plan and booked Matty's passage. After a lifetime with Frank, Maria understood just how necessary it was for Matty to get as far away from him as possible. Matty only wished she'd taken notice of Maria's veiled warnings about her brother earlier. At first she had thought him as loving as the rest of his warm-hearted Italian clan. They'd reminded her of a Bermondsey family, and it made her feel at home. But she discovered Frank's love flowed only as long as his every whim was pandered to.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?